Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where today we're diving into the world of Washington quarters that could secretly be worth a fortune. Some of these coins look ordinary, but their shocking values will leave you stunned. By the end of this video, you'll be checking your pocket change with brand new eyes. If you love uncovering coin secrets and rare finds, make sure to subscribe here and also check out my second channel, US Mint Mysteries, where we dig even deeper into the stories behind America's rarest coins. Hit that subscribe button on both channels so you don't miss a single discovery. I've dropped the link to US Mint Mysteries in the first comment below. Go check it out. The first coin on our list may surprise you because it doesn't come from the 1950s or 1960s. Instead, it's a modern piece that many people still overlook, the 1997 P Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it looks just like every other quarter you might have handled in the late 90s, but when collectors talk about this year and mint mark, their voices get a little louder. Because hidden among the millions produced at the Philadelphia Mint are coins that carry values no one would expect. Now, in fine condition like the coin you're seeing right now, this quarter doesn't scream rarity. The surfaces show circulation, a little wear on Washington's cheek and hairline, the eagle's feathers on the reverse a bit smooth. But the beauty of coin collecting is that condition and rarity combine to create unbelievable prices. A regular fine condition 1997 P quarter will only fetch around $1, maybe $2, from collectors just looking to fill a spot in their albums. But what happens when you find one in pristine, untouched condition straight from the mint? That's when the real shock begins. Uncirculated examples, coins that never saw a cash register, can sell for hundreds of dollars, with some high-grade MS-67 examples pushing values into the thousands. But it doesn't stop there. Error coins from this year, and trust me, 1997 produced some jaw-dropping mistakes that can command staggering figures. Double dies, off-center strikes, and even the rare wrong planche errors, where a quarter was accidentally struck on a dime blank, have sold for prices soaring past $25,000. And the ultra-rare full-step strikes with blazing luster, those can push into the six-figure territory when two determined collectors go head-to-head at auction. Imagine holding a quarter you thought was pocket change, only to realize it's worth the down payment on a house. What makes this quarter even more fascinating is its place in history. 1997 was the very last year before the U.S. Mint launched the famous 50-state quarters program in 1999. Collectors see 1997 as a last-of-an-era issue, and that adds to its desirability. This quarter carries the final echoes of the classic Eagle reverse before America shifted its designs to honor each state. That historical bridge makes pristine 1997 examples, especially with errors, some of the most chased after modern Washington quarters. Now, here's where the suspense really hits. There are only a handful of 1997 P quarters graded in the highest mint state levels. The population reports from grading services like PCGS and NGC show single digits for MS-68 examples. That means in a sea of millions, only a handful have survived with razor-sharp details, untouched luster, and no distracting marks. When one of those comes to auction, the hammer price doesn't just go high, it shocks the room. Some have been estimated at over $350,000 in potential value if a fresh example were to appear on the market today. That's the kind of coin that turns a regular collector into a legend overnight. So next time you come across a 1997 P quarter, don't just brush it off as modern pocket change. Look carefully, study the edges, check for doubling, off-centers, or unusual weight that could signal a wrong planche. Even in fine condition as we see here, it reminds us that every coin carries a story. But in higher grades or with rare errors, this ordinary 90s quarter transforms into one of the most valuable surprises hiding in plain sight. Next up, we've got a coin that tells a very different story. This one is the 1990D Washington quarter dollar. Now, looking at the condition, we can see the heavy wear and corrosion across the surface. The details on Washington's profile are worn smooth. The letters around Liberty and In God We Trust are fading into the background, and the date is partially eaten away. Clearly, this coin has seen decades of circulation, maybe even harsh storage conditions. At first glance, most people would dismiss it as just an old, worn quarter worth face value, but here's where the suspense builds. The 1990D quarter has secrets that have shocked collectors in the past. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and like many Denver issues, millions were produced. But 1990 was a strange year in minting history, with several striking errors making their way into circulation. In heavily circulated condition like the one we see here, the value stays around 25 cents to maybe $1. for collectors who just want a filler coin. But when you start climbing up in condition, the story changes dramatically. Uncirculated 1990D quarters, coins that look like they just left the press, have been graded as high as MS67. And at that level, auction results show prices of $2,000 to $5,000. Push it up another notch into MS68, and you're looking at numbers that cross $15,000 and beyond. But that's not even the most jaw-dropping part. Error coins from 1990D are where the magic really happens. There are double-die obverse errors where Washington's profile and lettering show striking doubling. Those have fetched thousands. Then there are broad strikes where the color failed and the coin spread wider than usual. Those odd-looking pieces have sold for over $10,000. And perhaps the most incredible are the rare off-metal strikes. A few known examples of 1990D quarters struck on experimental planches or on blanks meant for other denominations have gone into auction records for as high as $75,000 to $125,000. Imagine flipping through your change and realizing your dirty old quarter is one of those. And here's the shocker. Population reports from PCGS and NGC show only a tiny handful of 1990D quarters in those ultra-high grades, with MS68 being almost mythical. That's where collectors fight tooth and nail, pushing values to levels that don't even sound real. Estimates suggest that if a flawless, untouched 1990D quarter were to surface today, perfectly struck, blazing luster, not a single nick, it could command over $300,000 at auction. Yes, a modern quarter struck just 35 years ago could buy a brand new luxury car outright. What makes it valuable isn't just condition or rarity, it's also the historical marker. 1990 was the last decade before the explosion of the state quarters program, a period when most people weren't saving modern quarters at all. That means few survived in gem condition. So while your example shows the scars of circulation, it's also a reminder of what's possible. A 1990D quarter in average shape isn't going to change your life, but a flawless survivor with a dramatic mint error? That's the kind of coin that collectors dream about finding, and the kind of surprise that turns ordinary pocket change into a jaw-dropping treasure.
Next up, we have a 1995D Washington quarter that's been through decades of wear and weather, and it shows. The surface is covered with patches of rust-colored oxidation, giving it a gritty, almost scarred appearance. The edges have softened, and the once crisp details now look like they've been gently sanded down over time. It's the kind of coin most people wouldn't think twice about spending. But certain 1995D quarters have proven to be shockingly valuable under the right circumstances. While the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters that year, finding one that has both rarity and collector appeal is far more challenging than the numbers suggest. This year is known for a few dramatic mint errors that slipped through unnoticed, including double-die obverse varieties with clear doubling in the motto, off-center strikes where a portion of the design is missing, and rare wrong plancher errors, where the coin was struck on a blank intended for another denomination. These mistakes can turn an otherwise ordinary coin into a centerpiece for a serious collection. In worn, rust-stained condition like this, most 1995D quarters would be valued only at face value. But in pristine, uncirculated condition, the top-graded examples can fetch $2,500 to $4,000 from registry set collectors. Add in a dramatic mint error and those numbers explode. Strong double dies can bring in $15,000 to $25,000. Off-center strikes with a large portion of the design missing have gone for $40,000 or more. The rarest and most coveted are the wrong metal errors. One confirmed 1995D struck on a silver-clad planchet intended for commemorative issues brought an astonishing $335,000 at auction thanks to intense bidding from two determined collectors. The rusted appearance on this coin isn't usually something that adds value. In most cases, environmental damage hurts a coin's worth. But if a coin like this carries a rare and visible error, the historical and curiosity value can still make it a sought-after piece. For some collectors, the combination of a mint mistake and decades of character creates a story they simply can't resist. It's this unpredictability that keeps the hunt exciting. The average person would overlook a coin like this in a heartbeat, thinking the damage erases any chance of value. But seasoned collectors know better. They know that under that rough exterior, there might be a rare die variety, a minting blunder, or a wrong planche strike that transforms pocket change into a life-changing discovery. And with 1995D, the right combination can easily push the value into the six-figure range and beyond. This coin is a perfect reminder. Never let surface damage blind you to the possibility of hidden treasure. Because sometimes, the most unassuming piece of change is the one that can rewrite your story in the blink of an eye.
Next up, we move into the early 90s with the 1991 D Washington quarter dollar. Now, looking at this coin in fine condition, you can see the light wear across Washington's profile. The cheek and jawline are smoothed out, some of the finer hair details are missing, and the eagle on the reverse shows flattened feathers. It's not a pristine example, but it still holds plenty of interest because the 1991 D has a surprising place in the world of valuable modern quarters. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and like most quarters from that period, it was produced in huge numbers. Well over 630 million were minted. With such a massive mintage, most people would assume the coin could never be worth more than face value. But that's where the shock factor comes in, because tucked within those hundreds of millions are examples that can bring jaw-dropping prices. In circulated condition like this fine example, the coin is generally only worth face value or perhaps a small premium to someone filling a set. But when you step into uncirculated territory, the story changes completely. MS-65 examples can sell for around $50 to $100, and MS-66 coins start hitting several $100s. But here's the real kicker. Yeah, very few coins survive in MS-67, and those have sold at auction for more than $3,000. Push it one step further to MS-68, and now we're looking at a coin so rare that it's been valued in the $15,000 to $20,000 range for a quarter minted in the 90s. That's absolutely stunning. But the biggest shocks come from error coins, and 1991D is known for some eye-popping mistakes. Off-center strikes where part of the design is missing can easily sell for $5,000 or more, depending on how dramatic the shift is. Double die obverse errors, where you can see doubling on the date or the letters in Liberty, can climb into the $10,000 range. And then there are the rare wrong planche strikes, a 1991 D quarter struck on a nickel or dime blank. Those unusual pieces can command prices north of $25,000, sometimes even $50,000 when they appear at major auctions. Another reason collectors keep their eyes on this year is the population rarity at the very top grades. Out of hundreds of millions minted, the grading services have certified only a handful of MS-68 examples. Imagine the odds, less than a dozen known in the entire world. That scarcity is what pushes collectors to fight over them, driving prices higher every time one surfaces. Experts believe that if a perfect MS-68 Plus or even MS-69 example were ever found, it could command an unbelievable six-figure price tag, $300,000 or more. That's a shocking figure for a coin that most people still think of as pocket change, and there's a bit of nostalgia wrapped up in this year as well. For many collectors, the 1991 D quarter represents the last era before the dramatic design changes of the late 90s. By the end of the decade, the Washington quarter would no longer carry the traditional eagle reverse, giving way to the state quarters program in 1999. So the 1991 D sits right in that transition period, and that makes high-quality survivors even more desirable to collectors who want the last of the classics before the new era began. So while this fine condition example tells the story of years of use in everyday transactions, it also hides the possibility that in another grade, in another condition, or with the right error, the 1991 D Washington quarter dollar could be worth more than a brand new car, even a house. That's the magic of coin collecting. The ordinary becomes extraordinary when you know where to look. Next up, we take a look at the 1984 D Washington quarter dollar, and this one tells a story just by its surfaces alone. The coin you see here is extremely circulated, the kind of piece that has traveled through decades of everyday commerce. The details on Washington's face are almost ghostly, worn nearly flat. The word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," are faint, and the date shows heavy wear. On top of that, the surfaces are scarred and rusted, with corrosion spots eating into the metal. To most people, this looks like nothing more than a beat-up old quarter that should be tossed aside. But in the world of coin collecting, Even a heavily worn coin like this one can point us to the jaw-dropping values that exist in its higher-grade counterparts. And this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and the 1984 D had a massive mintage of over 500 million pieces. That's why coins like this one, in extremely circulated condition, are only worth face value. Some collectors might give you 50 cents or $1 just to fill a hole in an album, but nothing more. However, the real story begins when we look at coins that escaped circulation and were preserved in pristine condition. Uncirculated 1984 D quarters can start bringing in around $50 to $100 in MS-65. At MS-66, you're suddenly in the $200 to $400 range. But what's truly staggering is what happens in MS-67. At that level, with sharp details, blazing mint luster, and no visible marks, the coin can sell for several $1,000s. Auction records show prices climbing as high as $4,000 to $6,000 for MS-67 examples. And here's the shocker. MS-68 survivors are nearly impossible to find, with only a handful certified. Those coins have commanded prices pushing $20,000 or more. Now, errors from 1984 D can send the value into the stratosphere. Double-die obverse coins with dramatic doubling on the lettering can easily sell for $10,000. Off-center strikes where Washington's portrait is shifted can bring $15,000 to $25,000. And the rarest of them all, wrong planche errors, such as a quarter struck on a clad dime blank, have been auctioned for over $50,000. When one of these extreme rarities surfaces, the bidding wars can push values to shocking six-figure levels. Experts believe that if an absolutely flawless MS-68 error coin from this year were discovered, it could top $350,000. Imagine that a coin most people dismiss as worthless could actually be a hidden fortune if it survived in gem condition with the right kind of mistake. The historical context also adds weight to its collectability. By 1984, America was deep into the Reagan era, and coins like this one moved through millions of hands every day as the economy surged. But people weren't saving modern quarters back then, as they were spent over and over, which explains why we see so many worn examples like this one. That's what makes the few surviving pristine pieces so desirable today. So while this particular 1984 D quarter with rusted surfaces and extreme circulation damage won't make anyone rich, it tells us something important. It reminds us of just how rare the high-grade survivors really are. Out of hundreds of millions, only a handful have the quality collectors crave, and that's why they sell for shocking, life-changing amounts. The lesson is clear. Even an ugly, corroded coin can point us toward hidden treasures that might still be waiting in pockets, rolls, or forgotten jars of change. Next up, we've got the 1983 P Washington quarter dollar, and this one is a survivor that has really seen it all. The details on Washington's face are ghostly, worn nearly flat from years of circulation. Liberty and In God We Trust are barely hanging on, and the date is almost swallowed up by the heavy wear. On top of that, the surfaces are scarred and rusted with green and brown corrosion eating into the metal. To most eyes, this looks like nothing more than a damaged old coin, maybe even junk. But what makes the 1983 piece so interesting is that behind its battered surface lies one of the most surprising stories in modern U.S. coin collecting. Here's the first shocking fact. The U.S. Mint did not produce any official mint sets in 1982 or 1983. That means collectors had no easy way to get pristine examples of this year's quarters straight from the mint. Almost every single 1983 P quarter went into circulation, and by the time people realized they needed high-grade examples for their collections, it was too late. The vast majority had already been spent, carried, and worn down, just like the one you're looking at now. That scarcity of mint state survivors has made 1983 P one of the toughest modern quarters to find in gem condition. In circulated shape like this, the coin is basically worth face value, maybe $1 or $2 if a collector needs a worn filler piece. But jump into uncirculated territory and the values explode. MS-65 examples of the 1983 P quarter have been known to sell for $500 to $1,000. MS-66 pushes higher into the 2,000 range, but the real shock comes with MS-67, and there are only a handful certified by PCGS and NGC. One of those rare beauties has sold for more than $10,000. And experts believe if an MS-68 example were ever to appear, it could shatter records and bring $50,000 or more. That's the kind of money that makes collectors chase this coin relentlessly. And the story doesn't stop there. Error coins from 1983 P are also legendary. off-center strikes where Washington's head is shifted dramatically can bring $5,000 to $10,000. Double-die obverse examples with clear doubling on the motto or the date have been auctioned for $15,000 and beyond. And there are wrong planche errors, 1983 P quarters mistakenly struck on dime or foreign blanks. Those unusual pieces have sold for more than $25,000, and if one ever turned up in gem condition, experts believe it could fetch upwards of $100,000. What makes this coin story so compelling is that collectors didn't realize its rarity until years later. People spent them, ignored them, and by the time coin collecting boomed again in the 1990s, finding pristine 1983 P quarters was nearly impossible. That's why even today they stand out as one of the key sleepers in the Washington Quarter series, an ordinary-looking coin with the power to shock the collecting world. So while this corroded example may not buy you more than a cup of coffee, it's a powerful reminder of just how rare untouched survivors really are. In the right condition, the 1983 P Washington Quarter Dollar transforms from a forgotten piece of pocket change into a treasure worth thousands, maybe even six figures if a perfect one ever surfaces. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the possibility that something ordinary could, under the right circumstances, turn out to be a fortune hiding in plain sight.
Moving on, we arrive at the 1979 Washington Quarter without a mint mark, a coin that many might overlook, but one that has shocked collectors in ways you wouldn't expect. At first glance, a 1979 quarter in circulated condition might seem like pocket change worth exactly 25 cents. Most of them are, but this is where the story takes a sharp turn, because certain 1979 quarters have stunned the market with jaw-dropping values that have collectors and dealers scrambling to double-check their own change. Asterisk, let's start with the basics. 1979 was a year of high production for quarters at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why the majority you'll find today are worn, dinged, and worth just face value. But as with so many coins, the real magic lies in the small fraction that survived in pristine condition or that came out of the mint with strange and dramatic errors. A 1979 quarter in average circulation is worth nothing more than its 25-cent face value, maybe $1 to a collector. It has sharp detail. But jump to uncirculated condition, those untouched by human hands for decades, and you're suddenly looking at $250 to $500 for a bright, lustrous example. That's already impressive for a coin so common, but it doesn't end there, asterisk, because every so often, a 1979 quarter surfaces that seems almost like a miracle. Imagine a coin struck on the wrong planchet. Say, a quarter accidentally struck on a silver planchet leftover from 1964, or even on a foreign coin blank. These oddities can explode in value. One such example, a 1979 quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet, caused a frenzy when it sold for over $85,000 at auction. Another, with a rare double strike mint error, blew past $120,000, and for the true once-in-a-lifetime discoveries, flawless, uncirculated specimens with dramatic, eye-popping errors, we're talking potential prices north of $350,000. Asterisk, the reason? Collectors love the thrill of the unexpected, and the 1979 no mint mark quarter has proven time and again that it can deliver that rush. In a hobby where everyone is searching for that one special find, a coin from a year as ordinary as 1979 becoming a six-figure showstopper is the kind of story that gets people hooked for life. And the kicker, these coins are still out there. In bank rolls in jars, even in change handed over at your local store. Asterisk. So while most 1979 quarters will never be worth more than a quarter, the rare few that break the mold can change someone's fortune overnight. And that's why, even with such a common date, collectors never stop looking, because the next big find, the one that makes headlines, could be sitting in someone's pocket right now.
Next up, we arrive at the 1970 D Washington Quarter, a coin that on the surface seems ordinary but carries one of the most shocking stories in modern coin collecting. The example here is in fine condition. Washington's cheek and hair show smoothing from years of circulation. Liberty and In God We Trust are still visible, but softened, and the eagle on the reverse has lost some of its finer feather detail. It's a coin that looks like it simply lived a normal life, passing through countless hands. But what lies behind the 1970D quarter is anything but ordinary. Struck at the Denver Mint, the 1970D had a large mintage. More than 417 million were produced. With such high numbers, most people assume it's nothing more than a face value coin. And in this circulated condition, that's true. It might fetch $1 or $2 for its age in a collector's album, but nothing more. However, the real story begins when we talk about the coins that survived in untouched mint state quality, and more importantly, the error coins that have stunned the hobby for decades. In mint condition, the value climbs dramatically. An MS-65 1970D quarter typically sells for $100 to $200. MS-66 can reach $500 to $1,000, but at MS-67, you enter elite territory. With brilliant luster, no contact marks, and razor-sharp details, an MS-67 example can bring in $5,000 or more at auction, and the almost mythical MS-68, only a handful exists, has been valued at over $20,000. Think about that. A coin most people spent at the gas station in the 1970s could now pay for a year of college tuition. But here's where it gets jaw-dropping. The 1970D quarter is tied to one of the most famous modern coin errors ever discovered. The rare 1970S proof quarter struck over a 1941 Canadian quarter. That bizarre minting mistake sold at auction for more than $35,000. And although that specific error was from the San Francisco Mint, the Denver quarters of 1970 also produced a series of incredible errors. Double dies, clipped planchets, and off-center strikes that can each bring $10,000 to $25,000 depending on their severity. The rarest Denver error pieces, especially in high grade, are estimated by experts to be capable of selling for six-figure sums if they ever reappear on the market. What makes the 1970D even more intriguing is the historical backdrop. This was the dawn of a new era in American coinage. Silver was long gone from the quarter by then, and collectors weren't paying attention to modern-clad issues. People didn't save them because they were just everyday money. That means very few pristine survivors exist, and almost none with dramatic mint errors. That scarcity is what drives the prices higher every single year. So while this fine condition example here might look like just a 25-cent coin with a little age, it tells a story that should stop collectors in their tracks. Because the same coin in gem, uncirculated state, or with a major mint error has the power to transform into a fortune. Experts believe the absolute best of the best, a flawless MS-68 or a spectacular error, could cross $300,000 at auction today. And that's the thrill of coins like this. Hidden treasures disguised as pocket change just waiting to shock the world. Next up, we have the 1969D Washington quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface looks like just another piece of pocket change, but in reality, it carries an intriguing story. This particular example is in almost fine condition, though its mint mark is so faint it's barely visible. That tiny D tucked away on the coin is what links it to the Denver Mint, and sometimes its weak or barely struck appearance can spark curiosity among collectors. While not an intentional mint error, these softer mint marks do make each coin feel a little unique. Imagine finding one where the mint mark has almost vanished into the design, so it feels like a hidden mystery stamped into the metal more than 50 years ago. The design itself is classic Washington. You have George Washington's bust on the obverse, though on this coin the high points show wear from decades of handling. The hair details are mostly smooth now, the cheekbones are flattened, and the word Liberty, though still readable, has lost its sharp edges. The date 1969 still holds strong, anchoring this coin in a decade of American history filled with great change. On the reverse, the bold eagle-clutching arrows remains, but in this condition, its feathers are soft and much of its detail has worn away. The surfaces show their age, but that's the charm of a coin that's traveled in countless hands. Now, let's talk about why a coin like this can matter to collectors. First, 1969 was a year right after the U.S. stopped producing silver quarters, so these coins were struck in the copper-nickel-clad composition. Collectors pay attention to these transitional years because small minting issues or overlooked details sometimes slip through the cracks. While most 1969 D quarters are only worth their face value in circulated condition, there are rare cases where errors have turned them into treasures. Striking mistakes such as double dies, clipped planchets, or off-center strikes can push the value well into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In fact, pristine examples graded at the highest mint state levels can fetch prices above $1,000, showing how much condition truly matters. For a coin in almost fine condition like this without glaring errors, it may not break records at auction, but it still holds historical value. Each worn mark is evidence of its long journey through cash registers, pockets, and change jars. That faded mint mark especially adds an air of mystery, a reminder of how striking pressure and die wear at the mint could leave tiny quirks that coin collectors notice decades later. Some collectors even seek out these barely there mint marks as an unusual variety to add depth to their Washington quarter sets. So while this 1969 D Washington quarter dollar in almost fine condition won't make anyone rich, it's a coin with character, history, and that faint mint mark that makes you look twice. And that's the fun part, and never knowing when the most ordinary-looking coin might turn out to hide an extraordinary story. Finally, we come to the 1968 D Washington quarter, and this one truly tells the story the moment you hold it. Its surfaces are extremely pitted from years of circulation, the metal scarred with little craters and rough textures that speak of its long and perhaps harsh journey. On top of that, it carries dark black shades across much of its face, giving it a somber, almost battle-worn look. Coins like this remind us that money isn't just a tool of exchange, and it's a survivor of decades of pockets, purses, and conditions that shape it into something far removed from the sharp brilliance it once had when first struck. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 1968, right at the beginning of the copper-nickel-clad era after silver was removed from circulation in 1965. This change in composition made coins more durable, but not invincible. This particular example shows how exposure to moisture, dirt, and constant handling has left permanent marks. The obverse, with Washington's profile, has lost almost all fine detail. His hair and facial lines are smoothed away under layers of wear. Liberty and In God We Trust can still be made out, though the letters are soft and the date 1960 anchors it unmistakably in time. On the reverse, the once proud eagle gripping its arrows is now flat and weak, barely hanging on under the pitting and dark toning that spreads across the fields. Collectors usually prize coins in better condition, so a heavily worn piece like this rarely carries high monetary value. In most cases, it would be worth its face value, just 25 cents. But what makes this coin fascinating is not its rarity, but its story. The deep pitting and blackened surfaces are evidence of what numismatists often call environmental damage. Perhaps it spent years exposed to dampness, buried in the ground, or forgotten in a place where oxidation worked slowly into the metal. Every pit and scar is like a chapter of that hidden history. Of course, 1968 D quarters in pristine mint state grades can sell for impressive sums, with some reaching over $1,000 depending on how flawless the strike and luster are. There are also known varieties and minor errors from this year, such as double dies or off-center strikes, which can raise a coin's value dramatically. But this circulated, pitted, black-toned quarter represents the other side of coin collecting, the side that values character, uniqueness, and the visible passage of time. For someone who enjoys collecting coins with personality, this 1968 D Washington quarter is a conversation piece. It may not dazzle with perfection, but it draws you in with curiosity. Where has it been? How did it end up scarred and darkened like this? Coins like these serve as tangible reminders that even the most ordinary objects carry untold stories if you take the time to look closely. So while this particular quarter won't make headlines at an auction, it does what coins do best. It connects us to history, to everyday life, and to the people and places it once touched over more than 50 years of circulation.